the Wigan Athletic Heritage Project podcast. Today I'm going to take you back to the summer of 1932, to a town in Lancashire that had just lost its Football League club and was absolutely determined to get senior football back no matter what it took. We're talking about Wigan Athletic, the club that won the FA Cup in 2013, the club that spent a decade in the Premier League. But very few people know the extraordinary story of how the club was actually born, and just how close it came to never existing at all. What makes this episode special is the source material. We've got a remarkable collection that the Heritage Project have obtained of press cuttings from the local newspapers, covering these dramatic first weeks and months of the club's existence. These are the actual reports from 1932. And when you read them in sequence, what strikes you is just how much drama there was. Political drama, bureaucratic drama, last-minute crises. It wasn't simply a case of forming a club and off you go. There were real obstacles and real people who put their reputations and their money on the line. So let me set the scene. Wigan had been represented in the Football League by a club called Wigan Borough, who played at Springfield Park. Borough had been in the 3rd Division North, but the club was struggling badly. Financially they were in dire straits, and in October 1931 they actually resigned from the Football League mid-season. Just walked away. It was only the second time that had ever happened in Football League history. That must have been devastating for the town. Wigan was a proud sporting place. Rugby league of course, but there was a real appetite for association football too. And suddenly there was nothing, no senior football club. Springfield Park was sitting empty, and for the best part of a year that's how it stayed. Then in the spring and early summer of 1932, a group of local businessmen and football enthusiasts got together and decided they were going to form a brand new club. Not resurrect Wigan Borough, this was to be an entirely new entity. They called it Wigan Athletic Association Football Club. And from the very start, they were ambitious. The first thing they did was apply for admission to the Football League 3rd Division, straight back in at the level Borough had been playing at. Bold, to say the least. As the Wigan Examiner reported from a shareholders' meeting that summer, deputations attended at London and Manchester to present their case, but the reception was not encouraging and the required admission was not obtained. They were knocked back. So they needed a plan B, and this is where the story really gets interesting. The Provisional Committee, led by a man called Mr. J. Howarth JP, who served as chairman, decided to apply for membership of the Cheshire County League. Now, the Cheshire League was a strong semi-professional competition at the time, with clubs like Tranmere Rovers Reserves, Crewe Alexandra, Macclesfield, Chester and Altrincham. Decent standard. And crucially there was a vacancy. Manchester Central had left the league, so there was a spot to fill. A meeting of representatives of Cheshire County League clubs took place in Manchester on a Wednesday night to elect a replacement. The Examiner tells us that the newly formed Wigan Athletic AFC, along with Glossop and Northern Nomads, were the applicants, and Wigan Athletic were elected, with Glossop coming second in the voting. Brilliant. But that was actually just the beginning of the problems. There was also a second team to think about. The Examiner reported that a postal vote of clubs in the West Lancashire Football League decided in favour of admitting the Wigan Athletic second team as members, bringing the total number of clubs in that league to 18. So the first team would play in the Cheshire League, the reserves in the West Lancashire League. It sounds like everything's coming together nicely. Except for one enormous problem. Both leagues had accepted Wigan on the understanding that they'd get the blessing of the Lancashire Football Association, the LFA, and the LFA said no. Geography, essentially, was the problem. The Lancashire FA took the position that Wigan, being in Lancashire, should play in a Lancashire league, not a Cheshire one. Their previous decision stood. The club could not play in the Cheshire County League and should play a league in their own county. The Examiner reported that the matter could only be reviewed at a special meeting of the Lancashire Football Association Council to be held at Lytham on August the 11th. And the season was about to start. Wigan Athletic had made a request that the matter should be considered as soon as possible. because August the 11th was so close to the opening of the season. This was a genuine crisis. They had been elected to 2 leagues. They were trying to sign players, secure a ground, appoint a manager, and the whole thing could collapse because of a bureaucratic standoff between football associations. So what did they do? They fought on multiple fronts simultaneously, and the Wigan Examiner gives us a wonderful blow-by-blow account. First, at a meeting of the management committee on a Monday evening, with Mr Howarth presiding, a letter was read from the West Lancashire Football League. The League Management Committee, the letter said, were prepared to await the decision of the Lancashire FA at their meeting at Lytham on August the 11th. So the West Lancashire League was standing by them. That was encouraging. Then came the Cheshire League. A letter was submitted from the Cheshire County Football League, pointing out that a meeting of their management committee would be held at Crewe on Wednesday, and Mr Howarth was appointed to attend in order to explain the position of the Wigan club and how they stood with the LFA. So Howarth goes to Crewe, and this is one of the key moments in the whole story. The Examiner headline reads, Cheshire League's decision. The representatives of Wigan Athletic appeared before the management committee at Crewe on Wednesday evening, gave a detailed explanation of the progress made to date with the Lancashire Football Association, and after hearing the evidence, the Cheshire County League unanimously decided to stand by their original resolution that Wigan Athletic be elected members of the Cheshire County League. That's a huge vote of confidence, and the West Lancashire League backed them too. They informed the Wigan club that they were prepared to allow the fixtures already arranged to stand, providing the Lancashire Football Association gave their approval when the appeal was heard at Lytham on August the 11th. So both leagues were essentially saying, we want you, now go sort out the Lancashire Football Association. And here's where the committee really showed their mettle. They went even higher than the Lancashire Football Association. The Wigan Athletic Management Committee got in communication with Sir Frederick Wall, the Secretary of the Football Association itself, the national body, the FA, in London. They were seeking advice on the deadlock, and the reply came back that the FA were in communication with the Cheshire County League regarding the position, and if later found necessary, the FA would get in touch with the LFA with regard to their objection to the Wigan Athletic competing in the Cheshire League. So they had the FA aware of the situation and potentially ready to intervene. Meanwhile, the Lancashire FA wrote stating that 2 representatives from the club should attend at the Queen's Hotel Lytham on the Saturday, when the Athletics' application for affiliation would be considered. This was a make or break moment. And the headline in the Wigan Examiner says it all. Wigan Athletic, a big move forward. Membership of Cheshire County League sanctioned. Player manager appointed. On Thursday, a deputation from the Athletic attended the Lancashire Football Association meeting and placed the full facts before them. A unanimous decision was reached to accept the club as associate members of the Lancashire Football Association and to grant consent for the Athletic to play in the Cheshire County League and also in the West Lancashire League, provided they immediately put themselves in order as a properly constituted club. You could almost feel the relief through the newspaper. The deadlock was broken. Wigan Athletic were officially sanctioned to compete. And now things moved at incredible speed. Remember, the season was starting in barely a couple of weeks. They needed a ground, a manager, and an entire squad of players. The ground came first. The Examiner tells us that Wigan Athletic had already secured an option on Springfield Park, the old Wigan Borough ground. The intention was to purchase it on attractive terms. The ground was described as being in excellent condition, both as regards the playing pitch and the stands and other equipment. Everything was ready in that direction for the opening match on the 27th of August, when Port Vale Reserves would be the visitors. And then came the appointment that really turned heads. The Wigan Examiner ran a wonderful profile piece, complete with a photograph, under the headline, Wigan Athletics player manager, Mr. C.W. Spencer, Charles William Spencer. And what a CV this man had. A centre halfback of proven worth, Spencer was a native of Newcastle on Tyne, who began his football career with Washington Chemical Works AFC. In 1921 he was signed by Newcastle United and played for them at centre halfback until 1928. During that time he gained 3 international caps for England, playing against Scotland and Wales and touring with the English FA team to Australia in 1925. He was part of the Newcastle side that won the First Division Championship in 1927, so he possessed a League Championship medal. He'd also played in the Empire Cup and reportedly had connections with Aston Villa and an FA Cup winners' medal. A former England international with a League Championship medal, managing a brand new club in the Cheshire League. That's a statement of intent if ever there was one. After Newcastle, Spencer was transferred to Manchester United for a big fee and played there for 2 seasons. Then, in 1930, he was appointed player-manager of Tunbridge Wells Rangers in the County League, where he led them successfully to the Championship in his first season with them. His home was in Blackpool, and for several reasons it was more convenient for him to secure an appointment in the north, hence his application for the Wigan position. And here's a fascinating detail. He was still on Manchester United's books at a transfer fee of £2,000, but because Wigan Athletic were not members of the English League, he was eligible to play for them. The committee gave Spencer full executive powers as far as players were concerned. The signing of players and the general building up of the first and second teams were entirely in his hands. In an interview, Spencer expressed confidence in the success of Wigan's latest soccer venture and remarked that his personal plan was to build up a strong defence and half-back line as the foundation of a workmanlike side. With Spencer in charge, the squad came together remarkably quickly. The Examiner headline reads, "Over 100 players apply." Over 100 applications had been received. The committee said they were in the happy state of being able to fill every position in the field, with some of the applicants being well known in the football world and having gained international honours. For a brand new club in a regional league, that was extraordinary. It shows you the pull of a club that was clearly going to be properly run, with a former international as player-manager and the backing of a decent-sized town. And some of the applicants for the player-manager position itself had been former Wigan Borough players, so there was local continuity too. The Examiner gave us the details of who Spencer actually signed. William Little Henderson, an inside left, 26 years old, who'd played 2 seasons with South Shields, 3 with Portsmouth and 1 with Burnley, though the league had reduced his transfer fee to a free transfer. William Chambers, a utility forward, 28, who'd had 2 seasons with Blackburn Rovers, 1 with Oldham Athletic and 1 with Peterborough. George Allen, a right half-back who'd had 5 seasons with Northampton Town, still on their transfer list at £500 but eligible to play in the Cheshire League. Harry Callaghan, a left full-back who'd been with Leicester City and Tunbridge Wells. Presumably Spencer knew him from his time in Kent. Harry Wake, a left-back who'd played for Newcastle United, Cardiff City and Mansfield Town. McCabe, a centre-forward, just 22, previously with York City. And Smith, an inside left, 28, who'd played for Dundee and Aldershot. They were also close to signing a goalkeeper called Abbott, the former Nelson and Rochdale goalkeeper. That's a squad with genuine Football League experience at every level. Meanwhile, the amateur ranks were being filled too. 1,500 spectators turned out to watch a trial match between 2 teams, and the Examiner noted that the football was of a satisfactory character. A well-built centre half-back named Shovelton showed good ball distribution and ability to tackle at the right moment. Oh, and the kit. The committee had tentatively decided that the first team would play in red and white half jerseys with blue knickers, and the reserve side in black and amber. Not the blue and white we associate with Wigan Athletic today. That came later. Before the season kicked off, there was a big public meeting at Springfield Park, a large and enthusiastic meeting of shareholders and supporters, the Examiner called it. Mr. Howarth presided, supported by the full provisional committee. Ostick, Farrimond, Woods, Dwyer, Haywood the treasurer, Farriman the secretary and Spencer the player manager. Howarth told the crowd he was glad to see so many enthusiasts. A great deal of spade work and personal expense had been involved, he said, but they were all very glad to have senior soccer football in Wigan once more. He stressed that not a penny of the money subscribed had been used in the wrong direction. The committee had been very cautious in their spending. He talked about the opposition they had faced. They had applied for the English League and been knocked back, but although they were nearly counted out, they were not quite so, and they applied for and obtained admission to the Cheshire County League. And the chief thing Howarth told the crowd was that the Wigan committee had succeeded in preserving for the people of Wigan a great deal more than appeared on the surface. Had they not got into senior football that season, Springfield Park would probably have passed into other hands and perhaps been built upon in the future. Think about that, they weren't just saving a football club, they were saving the ground itself. The price of admission was set at sixpence plus a penny tax. Season tickets were 10 shillings and sixpence for ground only, 15 shillings for end stands, and 21 shillings for centre stands. A supporters club had already been formed at sixpence per annum, and crucially the club was to be run on thoroughly democratic lines, with the majority of shareholders having a full voice in the working of the concern. Spencer himself was introduced to the meeting and said there was no reason why Wigan Athletic should not prosper, and that he would do all he could to help in that direction. The final practice match drew over 3,000 spectators on a Wednesday evening. The probables beat the possibles, with goals from McCabe, Smith, Allen, Henderson and McCabe again. The Examiner singled out Allen as outstanding at right back and noted that Spencer himself at centre half formed a very strong intermediate line alongside Wake. Officials of the Cheshire County League had accepted the Athletics' invitation to be present at the opening match that Saturday, and would be entertained at the Grand Hotel afterwards, a gesture of appreciation for the kindness shown to the new club from the time they had first made application for membership. And then the real thing began. The first team's opening Cheshire County League match was at home to Port Vale Reserves on Saturday the 27th of August 1932. Meanwhile, the Reserves had their first West Lancashire League fixture. That one didn't go so well. Wigan Athletic Reserves lost 3-0 away to Lancaster Town Reserves. Not the dream start for the second string, but the adventure was properly underway. Looking at the fixture list for that 32-33 season, it was packed. Home and away matches against Port Vale Reserves, Tranmere Rovers Reserves, Crewe Alexandra Reserves, Macclesfield, Chester, Altrincham, Northwich Victoria, Stalybridge Celtic, Buxton, Hurst, Whitchurch, Runcorn, Manchester North End, Winsford United, Ashton National, Witton Albion, Mossley, Nantwich, Congleton Town, Hyde United, Sandbach Ramblers, plus entry into the Cheshire Cup competition. All of that built from absolutely nothing in the space of about 3 months. And what makes this story even remarkable is what came after. This club, scrambling around for permission to play in the Cheshire League in the summer of 1932, would eventually, decades later, reach the very top of English football. It took a long time. Wigan Athletic didn't get elected to the Football League until 1978, 46 years after these newspaper cuttings were written. They spent those decades grinding away in non-league football, always with that ambition to get back to where Wigan Borough had been, and when they finally made it, they didn't stop. The Premier League, the FA Cup. It all traces back to this summer of 1932, and the determination of people like J. Howarth, Charlie Spencer, Tom Hayward, the Farrimans, and all those shareholders who put their sixpences and their 10 shillings into a dream. There's something about the chairman's words at that shareholders' meeting that really stays with me. He said the new club would give a fillip to the business people of the town, to the corporation, to the bus services, and would provide the working men with Saturday afternoon enjoyment at half the cost of when Wigan Borough were in the third division, he was keen to add. That's what football was about in 1932, and when you strip everything else away, it's what it's still about today. From the ashes of Wigan Borough, from a summer of frantic negotiations and bureaucratic battles, and one man's appointment book at the Queen's Hotel in Lytham, a football club was born, and 90 odd years later, it's still going. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time where we'll continue this story.